Imagine if you had like a treasure box, like a huge treasure box of content, right? Content about your company. But not only do you have this treasure box, it's actually fully realized content. It's completely written, it's topical, it is all about your company. And by the way, it's also written in your organizational voice. How amazing would it be to find this treasure box that you could use? Well, my colleague Lisa and I are here to chat today about the fact that you probably already have this treasure box. We're going to talk about what it is and how you use, or in this case, reuse it. So, Lisa, we are talking about existing content. So, for organizations who've been in this business for a little while and have been doing any sort of content marketing, they probably have a lot of this. I know in our over a decade history at Spring Insight, we have a ton of existing content. So let's talk about first of all, why? Why is it a good idea to reuse content?
Well, I think it's fantastic. I think the biggest piece is that, as you mentioned, you have such a huge library of stuff that you've written in your own voice for a long time, and not everybody has seen it. Only you've seen it. Everything.
Mhm.
And in getting that content, being able to repurpose it is huge because, like you mentioned, it's already in your voice, it's already written, it's about your company, and it's all yours. It's your library to reuse.
And it's topical to you. It hits on all of your content. And it's assets. If you think about an asset, it's an asset. It's an asset that already belongs to you and probably is not doing as much work as it could be. So, one thing I hear from people when I talk about this is, well, people will notice. I mean, if I'm reusing my content, somebody will have noticed. So why, when we talk about this and we're excited about and saying, Pashad, don't worry about that, why shouldn't people worry about that?
I think I want them to see that it's being used. If you remember, like you and I remember back in the day when you're sitting and you're watching television and the commercials come on, you know exactly, you could almost tell time based on the commercials that would come through, right? But the message was always there. Sometimes they would change up the commercial, but the message was there, and they would just constantly reuse the same content in a different context or different people, but the message was there. One of my favorites was always the Folgers commercials and how they would reuse that same language, right? And keep the content fresh as far as the people or the setting, whether it's Christmas or summer break or whatever. We always knew what the message was, and you almost look forward to it. In keeping that, I think reusing it gets it back in front of people, your message, your voice, but yeah, in just a different light.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that your comments assume that people even remember it, right? Like, particularly when we're talking about blog languages. If you have blog language, if you have a blog that you wrote 3 or 4 years ago on a specific topic, the likelihood, first of all, that you have the same exact audience, right? That those people have seen it. Oh, and by the way, have remembered it. Like, that's just so unlikely. And one of the things that I think about in the context of content in particular is one thing we know as entrepreneurs, as business owners, and people who are going through the sales process is that people at different points of time are really in different places. So even if somebody has read something and in the unlikely event that they remember it, they might have been in a very different place and it really didn't hit them, right? I mean, we've all had this experience where we've read something and we're like, oh, that's nice. And then you read it another time and you're like, this is the most amazing piece of content, right? Because you have changed. You need this information more, right? And so I think that's another thing to keep in mind is the content, even if the content is exactly the same, even if the Folgers, that Folgers commercial is exactly the same, the Folgers ad is going to hit you very differently when you first woke up at 7 o'clock, 7 in the morning, before you've had your first cup, than it is, when you're sort of winding down for the evening, right?
I think that's it's spot on with hitting people at the right time when they need it.
So what does this look like? How does an organization successfully reuse their content?
I think in reusing it, you're going to go back and take a look at some of your main pieces that you've used, whether it's your blog or articles or anything that you've written, and pull some things out that could either be repurposed in social. Does it become another like a podcast topic, a video like this one of sharing your information, but reusing, repurposing, and getting it back out to the people? Does it turn into another email? Does it say, hey, look what I found in my archives? This resonates now because of whatever's happening in the current time.
Absolutely. So I mean I think that's one great way of doing it, right? Is taking it and repurposing it, right? Taking content that already exists in one modality and using sort of that core message and creating it in a different modality. I think that's one great way of doing it. Another is, by the way, just reusing it. Just taking, let's say it's a blog post, taking it and just changing the date to the current date and republishing as if it is brand new. Actually, my business coach has 52 business tips. She sends she has them for each week of the year, and each year she sends the exact same business tip. Now, and does she have a brand new audience? No. Does she like try and hide the fact that she does this? No, she's actually very open about it. But her logic, just as I said, there's different times in the cycle of your organization, and these business tips are going to hit you differently. Oh, and by the way, even if it doesn't hit you differently, it never hurts to be reminded of the basics. So just purely reusing is another way of doing it. And what about actually pulling it apart, right? You started to talk about this, but like, if you're using something on social where you've written a blog that's this big and has multiple sort of subtopics, taking and pulling out pieces of it really works well.
You're hitting on the old, recycle, reuse. So now
Mhm.
we've got recycle, reuse, and repurpose on your marketing materials.
Precisely. Awesome. Any other thoughts on this topic?
No, I think it's a great topic, and I look forward to future discussion on this and many more.
I know. I hope anybody who watches this and actually does this will tell us in comments how they like to reuse and recycle their comments. I also hope if they found it useful that they will like this video and even better subscribe to our channel, our young and emerging channel. We put out new content every single Tuesday and we look all about web strategy, marketing strategy, and it's all built for subject matter experts. If that's you, and if you would love to hear more about our organization, feel free to go to our website, springinsight.com, and sign up for an audit or a free consultation.